We will proceed to the next presentation by Mr. Sanjog Sahu. Thank you for being on the stage. He will be making a presentation on prospects of food processing in Orissa. I'm very happy to introduce Sanjog Sahu. He is the CEO of Mati Farms,
the co-founder,
Private Limited. He's an anthropologist. Interesting subject. He's an anthropologist from University of Arizona, one of the driest states in the United States. He has also received Young India Fellowship from Ashoka University. He's currently the director of Mati Farm.
Yeah.
He also owns it, I think, right?
I'm one of the co-founders. Yeah.
One of the co-founders. Thank you for coming on the stage and sharing your experiences. I would like you to focus on the skill aspects you have developed in organization and how much of importance you have given to skill development in your organization. And if you would like to share any experiences and focus on to future, what kind of a help we can pick up for the seed sector and the plant breeding sector.
Let me try to do that.
Thank you.
Let me try to do that. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanjog, one of the co-founders of Mati Farms. We are a food processing startup based right here in Orissa. And the dominant theme so far, as Dr. Rao mentioned in this conference, but broadly in this sector, I think has been agricultural modernization, with the intended goal of increased harvests. I was here to talk about a problem that the farmer faces on the other side of this, once there is a successful harvest, which is that of post-harvest loss. And along with the problem, I'm also going to talk about the solution, which is value addition through food processing, by looking at our experiences as a startup here for the past 3 years. So a little bit of the overview of what post-harvest loss is. Post-harvest loss could happen to any crop. It's a humongous problem in India. The numbers are staggering, and almost half of all the post-harvest loss that happens in crops is in fruits and vegetables because they're perishable. They have a very short window to be sold in the market or be processed. The percentage that we actually process is also very negligible compared to other countries in the world. But I think the most interesting fact here is that Orissa has actually become a powerhouse when it comes to processing. When it comes to production of fruits and vegetables. If you consider our population, we'll probably be amongst the highest per capita producer of certain vegetables in the country. But when you think of the infrastructure for processing fruits and vegetables, it's very negligible. In fact, I don't know of any. If you know it, please let me know. So that's the broader context in which we began our journey. But we were looking at this problem from a very different angle to begin with. We thought that if the crop is not creating value for the farmer, then how would we change the crop? How would we look at high value exotic vegetables, which Orissa's climate allows them to be produced around the year. So we started with that. We developed best practices. We worked with farmers. We were profitable for a few cycles, but as we scaled, we realized that even exotic vegetables are subject to the same kind of post-harvest loss issues. So we're not really going to the root of the problem. That's when we started looking at crops that were already growing here, that were already doing very well. The production was high. And we started thinking of how we could, do something with those crops instead. So these are the crops that we work with right now. These are biofortified sweet potatoes. They developed and they're grown right here in Orissa. But they have a strong global demand, especially in their processed forms. They also have a high cultural acceptance amongst farmers. It's not like we are going into the farmers and asking them to grow something very exotic, because Orissa is the #1 sweet potato producer in the country. Of course, the regular white variety. But these are biofortified varieties which are developed by scientists here at CTCRI, ICR, CTCRI in Bhubaneshwar. And they are very climate adapted, very little water requirement. There are hardly any pest issues, and other than weevils, of course. But they're a crop of the future, it is said. Because of all of these factors, the potential for high production also exists. So that's one of the reasons why these are all, basically the gamut of this is why we decided to focus on this crop. So this is a snippet by one of the scientists, Professor Cherian here at Bhubaneshwar, who was a part of the team that developed these varieties.
Center of CTCRI, Bhubaneshwar, we have developed a number of biofortified varieties. Sona, a variety released 2016, is contains very high amount of beta carotene. This variety is getting very popular, and we are popularizing in tribal areas of Odisha, because in this region night blindness, which is caused by deficiency of vitamin A, is prevalent very widely. So in collaboration with Matti Farm, we have taken popularizing this variety in Keonjhar district and Koraput district.
Upland districts where the climate actually allows for season extension of sweet potato cultivation throughout the year. There are some caveats. We need water, some amount of water. The farmers have to have some experience. There has to be a boundary. But more or less, we are working about 100 farmers. We don't have contracts. Very few of them are individual farmers that we work with, but most of them we interact with through their SHGs or FPOs. We are connected to them usually by the local administration or NGO partners who are also our implementation partners on the ground. And we have 100% buyback where at a pre-agreed upon price, which is typically 2 to 3 times the market price. So that's our model. We actually go in not just at the sourcing stage for the farmers. We go in the moment the farmer actually puts the seeds, or rather the vines in this case, into the soil. So we provide them the vines, the input material, the technical know-how, and we also, our team is frequently there whenever there's problem shooting to be required. And finally, when there's a successful harvest, we buy back everything and we process them into snacks and processed foods. We're currently selling them B2B, we're white labeling. We're also looking at getting into exports eventually at scale, but we're also looking at entering into modern retail. Right now, we are in the modern retail all over India for the fresh potatoes, but we will be launching the powder and the other forms of snacks very soon. Yeah, so those are our products. These are pictures from our trials. These are orange and purple fleshed sweet potato chips, which are great as a health snack. And we also make dehydrated powder from the graded out potatoes, which again have a very big demand, rising demand in the bakery sector. All of this is made at our processing plant in Jagatpur Industrial Estate here in Odisha. I'll close with the learning so far in our brief journey. One of the things that, and I hope that this is going to be important for any potential entrepreneur, any of you who are looking into getting into food processing. So in our case, we realized that one of the things that worked for us was, instead of trying to redo everything and looking at new crops and then getting them out and processing them, it makes sense to look at what's already growing well and which is the dominant crop in your region, and then thinking of value addition. The central government has a scheme, the one district, one focused product, where they've actually identified the dominant crop in every region. For instance, if you're in Jharsuguda or Sambalpur here in Odisha, then a chili sauce unit might make sense because chilies are the dominant crop there. On the other hand, if you're in southern Odisha and Gajapati district, then a pineapple extraction unit, juicing unit might make sense because pineapples are routinely harvested in huge volumes, and there's a lot of loss in that. The other thing I want to touch upon is that we think of cutting edge innovation. We discussed cutting edge innovation a lot when it comes to food processing, but we are at a very nascent stage here. Like I said, there's hardly any infrastructure. So let that not dissuade you. Even basic level processing such as snacks or condiments or dehydrated powder in our case can actually provide returns at any scale, as we've realized. I'd like to close with another experience that we've had, which is that rather than thinking about competition, we have actually benefited a lot from collaborating with other players in this ecosystem. There's hardly an ecosystem. It's a very unorganized sector. Some of my best customers, biggest customers are actually technically my competitors in other parts of the country who also are into sweet potato chips or powder. And there's sometimes we have an excess harvest, so we sell off our excess to them, or we need products or technical know-how which they help us with. So we are also, as we are all aware, probably that cluster approach actually helps when it comes to thinking of exports, competing in the global markets. Right now, there's no cluster. So don't let the idea of competition or the threat of competition deter you from getting into this, nor the scale at which you're going to get into it. So yeah, I think we have some time left. So I'm going to try and end with one of our progressive farmers who talks about how it is to work with us.
Farm सहित आमर जोगाजोग थिला कृष्णा बोली गोटे कंदमूल जातीय कंद जातीय फसल पे आमे पाइलु सेठी आमे चाहिलु जे गोटे जगार लगेबू एवं गत वर्ष जनवरी मासरे आमे लगेइथिलु 2021 रे जनवरी मासरे लगेइथिलु एवं एटा भलो हैला आउ ताकू माने उत्पादन मध्य भलो होउची। आगामी दिन रे आमे रखिचु ए एरिया रे केमिति अधिक रु अधिक लोक कले आमे चाषी उपकृत होगा सहित आमे ताकू बजार सुविधा मध्य देवार व्यवस्था करबा पई चिंता करियोछु।
work with us. We are a growing team. We are looking for, young graduates like you to work with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Mr. Sahu. It's a wonderful presentation. Are there any quick questions?
Finish it very fast so that you will have enough questions.
I think I finished just in about 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Less than.
just in 10 minutes. Thank you for providing that space for questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dasgupta has a question.
Difficult to get up from here because of this desk here. This yellow flesh, this high beta carotene material is exotic. So Indian system has got it imported. This is South American material, and it has been imported by the Indian research system and developed into new varieties. They have made selections and all. So one, that the raw material that you are dealing with is not unique because it's a public domain material. Will be available to anyone who goes to CTCRI here or at their headquarters in Trivandrum. They are going to get this material and newer varieties also. First yellow variety released by CTCRI was probably 15, 20 years ago because it's exotic material, one of the collections that came from abroad. So once you run out of this idea, what will be your next? So my questions are like this. Raw material is not unique. And the process that you're using for making chips, what is unique about that? And the acceptability at the counter. Bioavailability. I don't know if I take just potato chips or Pringles or something like that. What is my advantage of having this yellow flesh? I mean, night blindness is happening in remote rural areas and chips are going to be munched by the beer drinkers. So where will be, how will you sell it? My point is, how will you position it in the market? Who are going to consume it? So that is one thing. Let maybe run this as a parallel business. And therefore you said, I might go to the southern area where there are pineapples. I might go to some other area where there's some other product. So that you have to start right now. That diversification you have to have so that you have a portfolio of products. If one doesn't click very well, you have a secondary and the season. There is one season for this, there'll be another season for another raw material. So if you have those things, I have been, now consulting a lot with a lot of startups, and I've seen some of the wonderful ideas which are coming from them. Wonderful ideas, but how you compete with the people who are now selling makhanas in airlines. The Indigo I came through, they were giving makhanas. At one time Bihar thought that nobody knew about makhana excepting Bihar.
So you'll be happy to know that
now it's being served. Now it's being served on Indigo flight. So how will you reach that to that level?
Right.
So that's all marketing, more than manufacturing. So keep these things in mind.
That's great feedback. Yes.
Happy to interact.
So I'm actually, like I said, it's the scale of food processing, the scope for food processing is so big that we'll actually require 100 Marti farms to actually, meet all these gaps. So we might not be the ones.
Why 100 Marti farms? The Marti farms can grow to that size.
Well, I hope it does.
Why not?
And with regards to the plant material, you're very right. These are the root material was originally from Peru and other places, Philippines, but these are pure line varieties that have been developed here in Bhubaneshwar by CTCRI. So in what I'm trying to say is that they adapted well. And with regards to creating IP over that, that's not our intention. We, in fact, one of the reasons why CTCRI is working with us is because they've been struggling to promote these varieties. Because as you rightly said, their focus was to enhance the food security or nutritional security of the people in the tribal areas, right? Night blindness and other things. But the thing is that even if a small farmer is growing over a quarter acre, they're producing something like over a ton of this. They can probably consume maybe 50, 100 kilos in their village. When they go to the market to the rest, they were not getting value. So these relatively exotic varieties were not doing well. On the other hand, there's a global demand. When you think of the consumer side, there is actually, like, these are considered to be superfoods. They're actually the powder is being used in all kinds of breads to, other things, anything that has a paste form like a maida, this can be substituted because it has some, starch in it. So there's a pronounced market there. So we are simply, as a company, we are trying to plug this gap. Of course, we have machines that will lie unfunctional if we only depend on this, because the traditional season cycle for this is 4 months. And Odisha, most of the farmers are doing rain-fed cultivation. So between January and February, all the harvest was happening. The reason why we started working with farmers directly is because we wanted to extend the season so that our machines are operating throughout the year. Besides that, we also work with tapioca, cassava, and other things, but I didn't touch upon them because I thought that, in the interest of time, I didn't focus on those. But we do, run throughout the year like that. As regards to the market in India, it's so big that's why, like I said, we are looking to collaborate with other ecosystem players so that, everyone benefits. It's not really a concern to contain, intellectual property or restrict intellectual property about our processes or our production. On the processor bit, yes, we do have some trade secrets, but if you look at food processing, especially in the chips market, or it's not rocket science. It's all the technology is out there. It can be bought, and what differentiates a product from one from another is often the trade secrets, as in the recipes or the flavoring and things like that.
Yeah. Any other final question? Okay, if nothing, yeah, one final question.
So you said life is around 4 months or so. I mean,
the production cycle is 4
cycle.
months, yeah. It depends on summer to winter.
How we are going to bridge the storage issues?
So that's another problem when you think of food processing. It's not just food processing itself. Even cold storage infrastructure is negligent. And I was just talking to, I think, Mr. Gopal, who's not here right now, who was talking about how private entrepreneurs can get into it or whether the government should get into it. There are different models for cold storages, but right now all the cold storage infrastructure we have in the state is largely geared towards potatoes and, they're stored at a different temperature. If you think of all the perishable vegetables, they're often stored between 8 to 12 degrees, and we don't have the cold storage infrastructure for that. So that's also another opportunity, I think, for entrepreneurs at different scales to get into it. And of course, a lot of companies and startups are working on it. In our case, the reason we focused on season extension and we work so carefully with farmers is so that we can predict every week or every month how much we have. And of course, even there is some trade-offs, which is why we are working with other collaborators so that we can sell off the excess.
Yeah, there's one hand went up in the back benches. Thank you. Can you pass on the mic? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, one last question on Mr. Sahu's presentation.
Good afternoon, sir. I have a few questions actually, so I'll shoot them right at you. The first is Marty Farm also looking for research, or is it primarily only in the food processing? Because I did not get it very clearly from your presentation whether you are targeting a market where you are selling maybe, healthy products like sweet potato based snacks, or whether you are targeting to provide nutrition to those who cannot really afford it. Because if you are, then we could actually venture into more a research based approach where we can target crops which are like Lathyrus sativus. Lathyrus sativus is it's a very potent plant. It can survive in both flooded conditions and in the absence of water. So why not develop varieties of that? Because it's very protein rich. It is very nutritional. So I would like to get a very clear perspective from your side.
Thank you for the question. As a company, we have our own limitations. We have to be profitable. We have to look at what's the easiest go-to-market strategy and which is the fastest way to go to the market with products. So we are not very research-oriented that way. We are very small. We are investor-backed. So that allows us some leeway to play around and research what products work. But the data for that is already out there. When you look at competitor analysis, doing something very niche like what you suggested might not work in the currently, but yes, at scale, I do see us getting into research. With regards to whether our focus is on enhancing the nutritional security or diversity of the farmers that we work with, yes, but in an indirect way. For instance, our programs do allow farmers to, we have contracts, but the farmers are allowed to keep a certain part of the produce for their own consumption or for distribution in the village or selling it in the local market. It's their prerogative. We don't restrict them that way. But our concern is more on the consumer side, and yes, our products are something that we'll not be able to penetrate the interiors with our products. So we are primarily looking at creating products which are for the metro or the urban markets or the global markets. On the social impact side, we're hoping that right now the problem that we are trying to solve is, like I said, post-harvest loss and farmer distress because of that. So we feel that if the farmer is able to grow something which might, benefit or enhance their dietary intake or something like that, and yet at the same time they also we're meeting the income, providing income security to them because they're getting money for it. I think that's the space in which we are operating in. But please get in touch with us with your idea. I'm always looking forward to exploring things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu. It's always very nice to hear the young and the bright and who are the future in this startup environment, and we wish you grow into a big organization and all the very best. Let's put our hands together for Sahu and all the very best to you.
Thank you.
We will now